Hello, I promised yesterday that I would do part two of Minister quote unquote Louis Farrakhan's murky finances. Okay, so I made some notes here. The Chicago building Farrakhan calls his sale office building owes more than 1 million in property taxes. There are other three buildings carrying an additional 50,000 unpaid in property taxes. Okay, although this is a spin that church pastors also used. Although Farrakhan claims that he personally owns nothing, all of it's owned by you. He tells his gullible followers that I don't own anything. It's owned by you. But when you examine the records, it shows that his wife owns the property. His wife owns the property and the cars, yet somehow you own it. Millions of dollars flow into Nation and its associated firm each year. Millions of dollars from donation, rent, purchases, speaking fees, and government grants. Although no one outside the inner circle can say exactly how much cash the nation takes in each year, or precisely where the money goes. In contrast to churches that published annual audited financial reports. So even though the black church is corrupt, still they publish an annual audit financial report, even though most black churches are corrupt. The Nation fiscal dealings are shrouded in secrecy. In this series, I'm going to go into the background of how the Nation of Islam was established by a Pakistani, an Arab who called himself Allah. This is how messed up our people are. This is how messed up we are, that we're bowing down to a Pakistani who calls himself a god. He was a crook, a con man from India. But
get the fuck out of here. No, I cannot. It's serious because it's very important, please.
That's another video. And despite anti-government rhetoric, America's fallen, I'm gonna kill the white devil. Two of the most lucrative Nation-affiliated ventures, the security companies and the AIDS clinic, have since federal contracts worth more than 15 million. Okay, 50 million. The engine that drives the entire economic program, right, is Louis Farrakhan. Okay, let's keep going. Despite its name, the Nation of Islam is not affiliated to Orthodox Islam. We all know that. Okay, it's a cult whose religious leader considers Farrakhan tenets to be heretical. Nation minister teaches that their founder, a Detroit silk peddler named Fard Mohammad, was the embodiment of God, and that Elijah Mohammad was a Messiah. Okay, I want to quickly go on to the economics part. Also, unlike mainstream Islam, the Nation teaches that white people were grafted into existence 7,000 years ago by a white scientist who made them inherently deceptive and murderous. Okay? The Nation's membership have been kept secret under both Elijah Mohammad and Farrakhan, which you wonder why. Okay? But let's go to the business section. Farrakhan has patterned the Nation's sprawling conglomeration of business and charities of those established by Elijah Mohammad, stiff-lipped man who wore a star-embroidered ferries and sank millions of dollars into building business in the black community. As in the Heights, court record shows, Elijah Mohammad's Nation owned farms in 3 states. a newspaper that earned annual profit of 3 million. So despite all his affiliate business, etc., having 50 million here, 30 million there, it makes you wonder why is nothing happening for African Americans. The Chicago supermarket that cleared 325,000 on sales, 1.7 million a string of small bakeries and cleaners, some 40 odd Chicago area rental properties, and the controlling interest in the Guarantee Bank and Trust on the South Side. The Nation of Islam followers estimated at that time was 3.7 to the treasuries, according to an audit. This was in 1972. It was worth 3.7 million done for the nation. Imagine how much it's worth now. The empire began to crumble even before Elijah Mohammed's death in 75, riddled in tax debt and internal corruption. If you look at the history of Nation of Islam, from murders, ritual killing of black people only. Never mind Malcolm X, they've been killing black people since time began. They call themselves some kind of a voodoo house or something, right? Voodoo house, where they were told, I think it was by Elijah Mohammad or Fard, I think it was Fard Mohammad, that they should kill their own people, but that's another video to make, okay? The empire began to crumble when Elijah Mohammed died in 75, riddled by tax and internal corruption, and finally collapsed amid competing probate court claims of his heirs and ministers. So much for black empowerment and bringing black people together. It's all about money, heirs, and who owns what. But for all his flaws, the blueprint of Elijah Mohammed was the one Farrakhan has facetedly followed. Even when business sense might dictate otherwise, Farrakhan has attempted to repurchase the very plot of land that Elijah Mohammed owned and has named many of his business and religious treasuries after Elijah Mohammed. Okay? Considered by many to be a peerless public speaker, Farrakhan's ear-rattling rhetoric expresses the rage of racism victims, particularly the young, who feel abandoned by mainstream leaders. Okay? I still want to go into the finances. Okay? Okay. There is perhaps no better study of Nation of Islam venture than the soap selling program that once served as a foundation for Farrakhan's economic program. The soap, shampoos and lotions are distributed through a complex interlay of companies that drift in and out of business, sharing headquarters and offices sometimes, but not always filing state corporate papers. So these businesses, you know, they're closing and another one comes in. It's almost like Law and Hardy. There's no stability. Farrakhan named the soap program Power, Black Power, okay? And the people, and acronym for people organized, working for economic rebirth, Power, right? Started with a 5 million interest-free loan from dictator, they call dictator, but I don't think it's a dictator, Mohammed Muhammad, Gaddafi, okay? They say it's a dictator. No, it's not a dictator. But was never meant to just sell soap. It was a rally cry for the birth of a new black nation. Okay? However, what we do find out, this soap that they call empowerment for black economics was actually owned by white people. But they went under the pretext that this soap company, which must be about self-sufficiency, power, etc., you know, was all the investment, or if you like, it was the company was owned by white people, not by black people, but they kept that quiet. Okay, here, but it says, but at least one of the profits, Fresh soap, is made and packaged by white-owned company in Memphis, Tennessee, then shipped to Nation Chicago warehouse, according to our records and interviews. Okay. Let me just continue. Wellington said he bailed out the company after they went bust. This Black Power business company went bust because Farrakhan refused to share control. He refused to share control. Farrakhan wanted power to be on the Nation of Islam, so it would be totally controlled by the nation. Hence why it went bust. Right? This is not what he agreed to. We thought it had to be independent. Okay, let's keep going on. This is what somebody says. I thought it was a black company. Right? This is before that. I was surprised John said in a recent interview that it was a big size opaque plastic bottle, and I wondered to myself who was making it. I thought it was a black owned company. Obviously, many black people thought that all the bow ties that the Nation of Islam, wears comes from Jews. The Jews created. Okay? The organization is an illusion. It's very deceptive. Okay? Let's have a look. The other company's Nationwide Ventures International was created in Chicago in 1987. Its officer, Mohammed, and Kamal Mohammed, the nation's secretary, was married to another of Farrakhan's daughter. Okay? Since 1989, Nationwide has been sued 10 times for not paying bills. As a result, it has committed but not paid court judgments that totaled more than 15,000. By April 1993, the company couldn't meet debts to suppliers and hadn't paid rent for several months. Court record shows, and the Internal Revenue Service was preparing to seize its bank accounts to collect 93,000 in unpaid payroll taxes. Okay, this is Nation of Islam who claim they want to empower black people. You're pouring your money into their organization. Yet the IRS in federal court papers filed in June, IRS attorney called the purported liquidation a sham to evade the payment of taxes. What gets me? Why they're allowed to do that? It's beyond me. The IRS is still trying to collect money that Nation of Islam still owes for the soap and provocative slogan, power. So this is weird. You're told to trust in this con man. You're told that he's going to build a black economy and an acre of land, and he's in serious debt. He can't even pay his taxes. Okay? And let's keep going on. I missed part here. Alright? While the Nation of Islam is in debt, Farrakhan literacy is heavily guarded home called the Palace. The Palace. While you're living your shithole, it's called the Palace. The 2-story steel and blonde brick residence with ventilated, vaulted ceilings, stained glass windows, underground garage, and internal elevator was purchased by the mosque. Okay? And it tells you how much it's worth. The Farrakhan family's second palace in Phoenix is a plush 2-story brick building with a splashing fountain in its thick front lawn. Okay? But that's not the hero there. Meanwhile, Farrakhan Phoenix followers were forced to hold mosque services on the move. They attempted to buy and convert a local mini-mart in 1987, putting down $500, a mere $500, on obtaining a $50,000 loan, but they quickly defaulted on the loan payments and had to abandon the property. Okay? It shows the murky finances of the Nation of Islam. Okay? And he says, while Farrakhan says to you that he doesn't own anything, you own it. But Farrakhan's name, at least 3 chunks of Chicago real estate, as well as 2 luxury cars, his name is on them. Yet he claims you own it. He doesn't own anything. This is the same argument the church uses. Okay? Also entitled to Farrakhan personally are Mercedes Benz, you know, which he had brought in from Germany, from airport, and a silver 4-door Lexus amongst fleets of luxurious cars. This guy, he needs to come clean where his money, the millions of pounds, right, that he's been making, and yet black people cannot see anything, any fruition in their own lives. When Louis Farrakhan dies, when he dies, his son, who's an ex-police officer, is going to take over. When he died, like a church, black church people, when they die, the family takes over. It's like some African chieftain village, you know, and we black people be so superstitious, hanging on to Allah, to God, Jesus, whatever. And these people come along, these rip artists come along, knowing full well that we want to be deceived. And we pour our money out. Same in Nigeria, same in Africa. You got black women chewing up to something past the penis. It's a mentality thing. They know our minds are crippled by superstition. And they come along and they can fleece us. They can drive their fast cars. They can be in serious debt. Have murky finances, knowing that black people will continue to support these crooks. The IRS tried everything in their power to get them to pay their taxes, and they wouldn't. Their finances are in strict, secrecy. You're not allowed to know what in their finances. You're not allowed to know. Why not? In England, right? You have every right to know. What's the word I'm looking for? Freedom of information. Freedom of information. You have every right to know. It's for public record. Whether you're paying the IRS, well, how much money you're making. It's a public organization, yet they act like terrorists. Why? Because your money is used to fund their illicit, crooked lives. When black people are murdered, notice the Nation of Islam, who have a history of killing black people. They killed Malcolm X. And I'll make further videos of how the ritual killings that they're going into, makes you wonder whether